You're back with First Edition. The Labor Party will unveil its new foreign aid plan for Pacific neighbours today as it seeks to square the coalition over China's new pact with the Solomon Islands. And joining us live now is the Shadow Defence Minister, Brendan O'Connor. Brendan, thanks for your time this morning. So if you win government, what is your plan to counter Chinese influence in the Pacific?
Good morning, Peter. Well, we need to invest more in the Pacific. We need to invest and engage more with Pacific Island countries. And what we've seen recently is the government drop the ball in this area, this crucial area to our, not only because it's amongst our friends, it's critical to our national security. So we'll be looking to invest more in defence training. We do provide some training now to Pacific Island countries. We can do more of that, particularly in the non-commissioned officer area. We'd look to invest more in restoring our broadcasting in the region. We need more Australian content within the region, and we're going to increase expenditure to the ABC and other outlets potentially to ensure that we provide a voice to the region. And cutting broadcasting in the region has, of course, been a problem for the country. And also we're looking to increase surveillance. As you would know, Peter, the Pacific Island countries rely upon fishing as a major revenue source. There are many incidences of illegal fishing, and we will increase investment in aerial surveillance to protect their economic zones, to work with them, to work with their agencies to ensure that we can protect their interests. And in protecting their interests, Peter, we protect our own.
But how is all of this going to stop the Chinese military from moving in?
Well, of course, we are very concerned that under Scott Morrison's watch, we've seen a compact between the Solomon Islands government and the government of China. We are concerned that that will allow for the presence of naval fleet or other defence assets of China. And that needs to be, of course, our priority. We will obviously engage in the region. Now, we know that the Pacific Island countries do not want to see this type of presence. We need to make sure we impress upon the Solomon Islands, not just the Prime Minister, but the government, the Parliament and the country, that is not in the interests of the Solomon Islands, it's not in the interests of Pacific Island countries or Australia. So, of course, better engagement within the region. Not turning your back on their interests, like their concerns about climate change, will go a long way to preventing these things happening.
But that argument's not really suitable, is it, the climate change argument, because they're buddying up with China and they're the biggest emitters in the world.
Well, I think it's fair to say this, that they have been very disappointed about the way in which the Australian government has tackled this issue. They are concerned. I mean, you don't have to go far to talk to someone who was absolutely outraged by the mocking comments of the then Home Affairs Minister, the now Defence Minister, about laughing about rising waters in Pacific Island countries in particular. And I think that attitude has, adversely affected our relationship with those countries. And it's not to say there's one thing, there's many things. That's why our announcements today go to a whole range of issues in terms of aerial surveillance to stop illegal fishing, or whether it's about training their military. Having more military exercises would be a good thing as well. So there are things that are done now, but we could do more. We need to show the Pacific Island countries, Peter, that they are our friends and we have a mutual interest. We have an interest to ensure that this region is stable, is democratic and is peaceful.
OK, but if you win government in a few weeks' time, this will all be on you. If China does set up a naval base on the Solomon Islands, what will you do?
Well, I think that's the hypothetical of all hypotheticals.
Is it really a hypothetical? I mean, a lot of defence experts believe that that's a fairly realistic chance.
Well, any question that starts with if is a hypothetical, but I agree with you, it's a priority. And I would say this to you, that the first thing we would do, of course, would be seeking advice from our national security agencies. I mean, we've had many of our front benchers, including the Labor leader, have sat on the National Security Committee of Cabinet. We would engage with them first and foremost. We will engage with the Pacific Island countries, engage with our allies, of course, including that of the United States, and we would work out a strategy to mitigate the chances of that happening. That's what we would have to do. But it shouldn't have got to this. I mean, it should not have got to this point. This has happened under Scott Morrison's watch. He has failed here. And as always, he tries to blame somebody else for his own mistakes. He's got to front up, take responsibility, accept he's done the wrong thing here and work out a solution to it. If he cannot, he should get out the way and allow an elected Labor government to do just that.
OK, in light of China's actions in the Solomon Islands, do you still share the view that climate change remains the most significant threat to Australia's defence?
Well, it's not that I just say that. The Secretary of Defence of the United States has said that climate change is a national security issue. I don't think you need to put them in any order, but when you have the United States Secretary of Defence saying that climate change is a national security issue, I think you should take it seriously. And when the British Foreign Minister and Defence Minister say that climate change is a national security issue, you should take it seriously. When your AUKUS partners see it as a big issue, but when your Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, thinks it's not, then we've got a problem with our relationship with our most senior allies under AUKUS. And I think that's one of the problems. This government's got such a blind spot on climate change, it pretends it's not an issue, whether it's on the environment or whether it's on national security. Well, that's not what the United States thinks. That's not what the United Kingdom thinks. That's not what the Pacific Island countries in this region think. We need to take it seriously in a whole range of ways, environmentally, economically, and indeed national security too. OK,
Brendan O'Connor, the Shadow Defence Minister, thanks for your time this morning. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Peter.
Well, coming